Today I'm going to tell you a story about distractions and worry and how they get in the way of experiencing all that God has for you. Not long ago, my wife Ruth and I were on a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Israel. It was an amazing experience where we learned all sorts of things about Jesus and the Holy Land. If you've never been there, I strongly encourage you to take the trip. It really brings the Bible and your relationship with God to life in a way that's difficult to describe. We're about halfway through the 10-day trip. We had just spent a day at the Dead Sea, and we were on our way to Jerusalem. But first, we stopped at Masada. Masada is a mountain fortress in the desert where a group of Jewish zealots held out against a Roman siege for somewhere between 1 and 3 years around the year 70 CE. It's an amazing place about 1,300 feet in the air with an unbelievable view of the Dead Sea. We were touring the site when Ruth comes up to me and says, "Joe, did you remember to take our stuff out of the safe before we left the Dead Sea?" We had a travel wallet where we kept our passports, Ruth's driver's license, all of our cash, and a ring that included diamonds that had belonged to Ruth's mother and grandmother. Every night, we put that wallet in the safe in our hotel room. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember if I had taken it out of the safe before we had left that morning. As we continued the tour, I realized all our valuables, they were either stowed safely in my backpack under the tour bus, or they were still sitting in the room safe back at the Dead Sea. Needless to say, I was a little concerned. We spent another hour or so at the top of the mountain. I tried not to worry, but as we rode back down in the gondola, my stomach was doing somersaults. What would I find when I finally got back to the bus and checked my backpack? By this time, I was pretty sure the valuables were still in the safe, but I hoped and prayed I was wrong. When I got back to the bus, I discovered the horrible truth. I'd left them behind. I was beside myself. I didn't care so much about the documents or the cash. Those could be replaced. I was focused on that ring. It's one of Ruth's most cherished possessions, and it was entirely possible my carelessness meant it would now be lost forever. Our tour guide made some phone calls and worked out a plan with the hotel and another guide from a different tour group to try and get the wallet returned to us in a few days. But we're in a foreign country. We had no clue who would be handling our valuables. Could we trust everything would make its way back to us? We just didn't know. We had no choice but to wait a few days and find out. That's when Ruth and I got together and made a decision. We were on this amazing trip, and we knew God had many things for us to experience, but we'd never receive all he had to offer if we spent the next few days distracted with worry. And whether or not we chose to spend our brain power worrying, it would have absolutely zero impact on whether or not we would ever see that ring again. So we decided we would focus on the experience in front of us and embrace all God had to show us instead of letting worry distract us. We took a moment to pray together that God would help us set that worry aside. After all, we were on our way to Jerusalem. Later that day, our guide told us the other guide had taken possession of the travel wallet. He showed us a picture of the wallet, and sitting next to it in the picture were the passports and Ruth's driver's license. What the photo did not show was the cash or the ring. Were they gone? We would just have to wait and find out. We renewed our prayer against distraction and worry and continued on with the trip. God is so good. Jerusalem was amazing, and the entire Holy Land tour was absolutely life-changing in my faith and in my relationship with God. In chapter 10 of the Gospel of Luke, there's a story of two sisters, Martha and Mary. They have the incredible opportunity of hosting Jesus at their home. Mary sits at the Lord's feet and listens intently to his teaching. But Martha, she spends the whole visit distracted. She's trying to serve everyone who's gathered there. Finally, in exasperation, she goes to Jesus and says, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me." But Jesus' response is not what she expected. He says, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." That is the story of our experience on our trip after we left the Dead Sea. Thankfully, we chose to keep our eyes on God and what he had for us instead of worrying about things we could not change or control. And we're so grateful that we did. You're probably wondering if we got Ruth's ring back. I'm not going to tell you, because the lesson of this story is the same whether the ring was lost or found.